Episode 52 with Cierra Seay.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? We have another amazing and abundant leader on the call today. And I have just a few announcements and a few things I want to share with you real quick before I bring Cierra out. The first thing is, I don't know if you know this or not, but I do Facebook Live videos where I'm basically sharing my information, my thoughts, my wisdom, if you will. Normally I'm on the beach in front of my house when I'm recording these Facebook Live videos. It depends on how much wind, how much breeze there is, because it does interrupt the audio. Sometimes I'm sitting back here on my back lanai, and sometimes I'm just somewhere around town here on the island of Oahu. You'll never know, but the bottom line is this. I'm sharing some sort of information that kind of pops in my head, something I learned from one of my mentors, or just a message I just want to share with you. Now, if you want to get on the Facebook Live, obviously, just connect with me on Facebook. I will have the link in the show notes of this show at menofabundance.com/052. And if you do want to catch the live version, make sure you follow so that you'll get notified when I start broadcasting live, because I do it at random times. I don't have a set time right now that I'm doing Facebook Live videos. That may come later in the future, but right now I just do it whenever I feel something pops into my head. Otherwise, of course, you can catch the recorded version on Facebook. Just go to my Facebook page. Or I have this really cool technology that allows my Facebook Live videos to post directly to my Men of Abundance blog, where I generally get in there and type out the dialogue a little bit in the blog so that you can read through it as well. I don't always do that every single time right away, but I do eventually get to it. So you can either catch my thought-provoking and sometimes controversial Facebook Live videos directly at Facebook. You can either catch it live or recorded, or you can go to menofabundance.com/blog or just Men of Abundance and click on the blog tab. And feel free to comment either on Facebook on the blog, because either way they post directly to the blog, which is really cool for you bloggers out there. And you know about SEO and the importance of having comments on your blog. If you want to find out more about that technology, just get in touch with me. Now, one other thing I want to mention really quick is I've recently partnered with Audible. Audible is where I download all of my audiobooks. Obviously, if you're listening to a podcast, you like to listen to great content. So if you have books that you've been wanting to read, haven't gotten to, listening to them is, to me, the best thing. Usually what I do is I get the audiobook. If the book is something that I want in hard copy so that I can make notes, then I buy the hard copy or I buy the digital version. Sometimes I get all three. For instance, I have The One Thing in audio, digital, and hard copy, as well as Be Obsessed or Be Average. And since I've partnered with Audible and you're a Men of Abundance listener, you can get a free book when you sign up for their 30-day free trial. So go to moa-book.com, sign up for that trial, and get your free book. One of 3 books that I would recommend right off the bat is either Abundance by Peter Diamandis, The One Thing by Jay Papasan, or Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone, or any other book of your choosing, because there are hundreds of thousands of audiobooks there for you to download. And of course, I do want to mention that when you do become a paid member of Audible, since I'm partnered with Audible, a small portion of everything that you purchase from Audible does get paid forward to Men of Abundance to help us keep the mic on, and that is greatly appreciated. So not only do you get a great book to listen to, you get to help us keep the mic on and reach more men around the world. Millennial entrepreneur who vows to inspire, empower, and mentor those who take a different path. Cierra Seay is an entrepreneur from Detroit, Michigan, who has a real estate business as well as a network marketing business. She's recently launched her own podcast entitled the College Dropout Podcast. I love the title of this podcast. It's part of the reason why I decided to bring Cierra on to speak to Men of Abundance. Once I met her, I knew that she was a right fit for you guys. On the College Dropout Podcast, Cierra interviews entrepreneurs who either dropped out of college or skipped college altogether. Basically, those who have chosen to take a different path, if you will. Her goal is to help individuals like herself who don't have a formal education, yet still want to succeed in the world of entrepreneurship. In her spare time, Cierra loves to spend time with her friends and family. Cierra and I have a really cool conversation about this topic, and I really think you're going to get quite a bit out of it. Cierra, welcome to Men of Abundance.
Thank you so much for having me, Wally. I love your show. I'm glad to be on. I'm excited to talk to you this evening.
I am too. I'm really glad to have you on. I've only had one other lady on the show, and that was Mo, and that was like early on, and she is a good friend of mine who is running a wonderful nonprofit organization called Mo's Heroes. And I want to have the ladies on the show because let's face it, men, we have a lot to learn from the women.
Well, I'm glad that you think so. There may be some men who think otherwise, but I'm glad that you think so. We work together well.
Well, there certainly are those guys out there that don't think so, but let's put it this way. They're probably not listening to my show. And if they are, they probably won't be for much longer. And hopefully they will stick around and learn a little bit and realize that we all have something to learn from everybody, from each other. And I personally know for a fact we have a lot to learn from the ladies.
Absolutely.
Where are you at in the world?
Well, I'm located in a small suburb right outside of Detroit, Michigan, called East Point, Michigan. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in Detroit, went to school in Detroit, went to Michigan State University, and I'm still here in Michigan for the time being.
Beautiful, beautiful. How are things going down there?
Things are going well. Everything's moving forward. I find that a lot of people hear differently from what the media puts out there in regards to Detroit and what's going on, but everything is going well. I mean, every city has its bad apples, but things are moving forward, especially in the downtown area. I'm excited about what's going on here.
Yeah, I've seen some beautiful things, and I try to focus more on the beautiful things that are going on in the world rather than all the negative stuff, because it certainly outweighs the good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked to quite a few people who are not quite a few, but I've talked to a few people who are in Detroit, like yourself, and they're seeing what's really going on. And it just warms my heart to really see the people coming together and just making it happen.
Yes, that's definitely what's going on.
Awesome. So I like to start the show out the way I start most mornings, which is with an attitude of gratitude. I've heard you talk. I've heard what you got going on, but I want to know, what are you grateful for today?
Today, what I'm grateful for is actually, it's going to sound pretty cliche, but I'm just grateful for another day to get better at what I'm trying to do in life, another day to learn. I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, so every time I'm talking with someone, whatever I'm watching, I'm always trying to take something and apply it to my life and just learn. So I would say I'm grateful for that, because I've noticed a lot of people struggle with learning in just a comprehension type of way, and the way that I'm able to pick up things and dissect things and just learn, I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, and you definitely are on a learning path for sure. We're going to get into your story because the name of your podcast, in some cases, say otherwise. And I'll be frank with you, as I am everybody else, and that is, I really did not do well in school, even in high school, even in grade school. But I've been a lifelong learner. I was that kid that wanted to own the whole encyclopedia set because I was a perpetual learner. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to learn what I wanted to learn, which is what I think my problem was in school.
That could be it. I'm on the same. I did okay in school, grade school. When I got to college, I can honestly say I was not prepared the way I thought I was. And I did well my first year, but the years after that, I just wasn't focused and disciplined enough to keep it going. And I'll save the rest for the story in regards to related to my podcast.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into that right now, as a matter of fact. So before we got started, I spoke a little bit about you, kind of gave the Men of Abundance listeners out there a little bit about what we're talking about, a little bit about you. But I want to find out from you. I want to hear your story directly from you. So let's get a little bit personal.
Okay, let's go ahead and go there. Like I said, I did well in high school, and what happened in high school is that I found myself filling a gap. I love sports, and our school newspaper, we didn't have a sports section, so our journalism teacher, she told me to create it. So I did. What that did was open up a whole lot of doors for me in terms of writing. Now, writing was something I was always good at. I think it was my fourth grade teacher who really taught me how to write, and from there, I just honed in on the skill. So fast forward to high school, created the sports section, and like people thought it was amazing. Like I thought I was just writing what I wanted to read about, which was sports. Turns out, it was a really big deal. I ended up winning a very prominent scholarship in the city of Detroit that only kids that went to the prominent high schools won. I went to a school in the inner city. So for me to win that scholarship was a big deal. But I did not take advantage of it the way I should have. Like I said, I went to Michigan State. First year did okay. Second year got off track. Third year, I got kicked out of the School of Journalism for making a mistake that it really wasn't a mistake. It was something I did intentionally because I was being lazy. And what it was I created a story instead of going out there and doing the story properly. And that's plagiarism in journalism. And that's the one thing they do not, like, you can't do that and get away with it. We know there are some people who've gotten away with it, who are further along in their journalism careers, but they kicked me out of the School of Journalism, and I just never recovered because that's all I wanted to do when I was in school. So I ended up dropping out. And do you want me to keep going in terms of what I'm doing now, or how personal do you want me to get?
Well, let's tell your story. I really want what I want Men of Abundance. And by the way, I forgot to mention this, about 28 to 30% of the visitors to my website are women. So there definitely are some women listeners. So, it's an open audience. But really what I want to do on Men of Abundance is one of the things that we try to do is get to know the person behind the greatness and the person behind the abundance. And so, for as much as you feel comfortable sharing, we would love to hear your story.
Oh, no problem. Okay. So I ended up dropping out of college. That was around 2009. Came back home to Detroit. At that time, I found out that I was pregnant with my oldest son. So I was once again lost in the sauce. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. At the time, my mom was like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. I had my son, and then this is kind of the kick in the gut moment. I ended up losing my mom in 2011. She was battling a horrible disease called lupus that's hereditary. So I ended up losing her, and that's when things really started spiraling downward for me. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. I tried going back to school a couple times. It just wasn't there. It took a lot of odd jobs that really didn't work out. And from there, I kind of found my entrepreneurial spirit because I had to make a way out of no way, basically. That's when I found out about real estate. And more recently, when I found out about online businesses and podcasts, I'll kind of fast forward it a little bit because now I'm talking about what I'm doing now. But that's basically the short version of my story. Went to college, got kicked out, lost my mother, and that's when I figured out that I had to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, we have that in common. My mother also had lupus. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and she was a smoker, so of course she had lung cancer, fought lung cancer, won it, and then about 8 years later ended up with brain cancer. And the whole time battling with the lupus and other things associated with that. So we're definitely connected in that regard for sure. We're also connected in that we didn't talk about this before, that I too dropped out of college. That's how I ended up in the Army. I had a full ride scholarship out of high school in track, but decided at the time I did not want to go to college. I wanted to do I don't know what. It was not good, let's put it that way. And I ended up going to the college that I had the scholarship for, but paying for it, and then ran out of money for college. So joined the Army, and I ended up getting my bachelor's degree 24 years later. But then it was on, seemed like it was more on my terms, really. But so now here you are, you discover real estate and you discover online businesses and podcasting. So where did that take you? How did you get into all of that?
I found out about podcasting actually through real estate. I went to get my real estate license initially to do real estate investing full time. While I was taking the class, I learned more about being a residential agent, and that kind of sparked my interest a little bit more. So I did the residential agent thing for a while. While I was looking for more information about becoming a full-time investor, I stumbled upon a website called biggerpockets.com, which now is like the mecca for anything real estate investing. When I found out about it, they were still pretty small. but they had a podcast, and they always encourage everybody to go listen to the podcast because they interviewed investors, and they actually had interviewed someone from my local area. So that's how I found out about podcasting, and I'm like, wow. So they have this podcast, and then I started searching through iTunes, and I stumbled upon EO Fire JOD's podcast, and then I went to his website, and that's when I found out about how to podcast. And then he has his income reports, and you see the possibilities that were there. And that was about 3 years ago when I first stumbled upon podcasting. My original podcasting idea was going to be for me to start a podcast where I basically document my real estate investing journey. But obviously that didn't happen. I never launched that because I got tied up in being a residential agent. So I never got to the point where I could focus full time on being an investor. So I did that for a while, and then last year I came up with the College Dropout idea. I was just listening to a bunch of business podcasts, entrepreneurial podcasts, and I'm like, it sounds like everybody's story is pretty much the same. Venture capitalist, I raised money, my parents gave me money. You never really heard like the nitty gritty entrepreneurial story, the people who had to work 2 to 3 jobs. They didn't have that network from going to college. You never heard those stories, and those are the type of stories I was looking for, because those were the stories that I would be able to relate to. I couldn't relate to having a sorority sister, or you know what I mean, having people who I was in business school with. I couldn't relate to those stories, so I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. And so I came up with the idea last year. I went and studied more of JOD's and also Pat Flynn's information in regards to how to launch a podcast. And Lord and behold, August 23rd, the College Dropout podcast launched. It was a very interesting process. I love doing it. And I wish I would have started it earlier, but I honestly feel like I have something different for the business entrepreneurial podcasting category.
Yeah, you definitely do. I've listened to and subscribed to quite a few podcasts, and just the title of your podcast caught my eye right away because you're absolutely correct. There's so many people out there telling their story, but so many people are telling the good story, the good news story. They're not sharing necessarily that really kick in the gut, what I like to call that kick in the gut moment. And you had several. You had, going through college and just growing up and then getting kicked out of college for something that you did, and people just don't tell that story. And I love hearing the stories of the people that you have on your show, because it's just so real and it's so raw. And
exactly.
Yeah. So what's that doing for people? Are you getting any feedback off of that? And you're certainly inspiring me for sure, but are you getting any other feedback from listeners?
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of listeners who actually comment on the website. I don't get a lot of people who email me, but I get a lot of people who Facebook message me on Instagram as well. More people interact with me via social media than email. The guest I had on Tuesday, she's like a professional harp player, and I was floored when she told me that she didn't learn how to play the harp until she was 30 years old. And now she plays the harp full time all around the country, soon to be all around the world. And it's like, those type of stories are so inspiring to me. But a lot of people come to me and they say, these type of stories are the stories that I thought didn't exist, and they do. So that gives me hope. I get that type of stuff all the time, and I just want to keep going and keep moving forward. Eventually I have some plans to try to create some other type of content and resources for people who may be feeling like I was feeling at one point, in terms of they want to be an entrepreneur, they don't have a college degree, and they really don't even know where to start.
That's absolutely correct. And I want to hit on something here. We can talk about this if you want to, but the thing that I want to hit on is that I want Men of Abundance, I want you guys to understand, all of you out there to understand, that education is extremely, extremely important. But a traditional education from a university, or the traditional way of getting an education through a degree, through a piece of paper, it's not necessary in all cases. Now, of course, if you want to go be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you have to pass that board, and you have to get certain levels of education, and you need that pedigree, and it does help you in that case. But if you want to go be a harp player, or you want to go be a real estate mogul, or you want to go be a business owner, or you want to go be darn near anything in the world that doesn't require that piece of paper, you do not need to pay tens of thousands of dollars and spend 4 to 6 years in a university, there is so much information out there. You know, there's a guy, and I can't remember this guy's name. I just had this conversation with Jay Papazon, I think it was a couple weeks ago. And there's a guy out there who's got a MIT degree that he did 100% online just by searching the information online, and he actually downloaded many of the courses from MIT. He did the whole thing without ever stepping foot on the campus, and he got equivalent to the MIT degree, and then he went and challenged the test. And I don't know that he actually got the degree, but he got the information. And that's what's important, is the information. Right. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that the experience of living on a college campus and the experiences that you will learn and build, and the relationships and the connections that you will build and the network that you'll build by actually going to college does help. But I'm here to tell you, with this social media thing, I get a chance to reach out and talk to amazing, amazing people like Cierra and John Lee Dumas and Jay Papazon, and I just got scheduled to be able to have a conversation with Grant Cardone. And
oh, wow.
I wouldn't be able to have these conversations if I wasn't bold enough to learn from the same guys like Grant Cardone, and he's in your face, you know, and to be bold like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. One thing I always tell people is that I didn't create my podcast to downplay college. I admire anyone who has their degree at whatever level, but people need to know that it's not the only way. Like I said, I'm a lifelong learner. Education is very, very important, but there are many ways to get it, like you stated. For one, there are all type of online courses. Udemy, there are places called, there's another place called Coursera that I look on often. I've never taken courses from these places, but depending on what you want to do, you can find specific courses that are created by people who are actually doing this type of work. For example, Gary Vaynerchuk has a course on Udemy about building a personal brand. That's cost $50 versus you paying hundreds or thousands of dollars to take a course at a university to try to get your degree in marketing, because that's probably what it's going to end up being in. You won't get it in personal branding. You know, if you want to learn more about social media marketing, you can take specific courses or read specific books. So I completely 100% agree with you. The education is important, but you need to figure out whether a college education is important. If that makes any sense at all. I tell people all the time, you have to learn, you have to find a way to grow, but it doesn't mean you have to sit in the classroom to do that.
Agreed, absolutely. And I got my entire bachelor's degree online anyway. I did it through a college, but I did it completely online, just because I learned better that way. But the thing that really frustrates me about the whole college thing, and same as you, I'm not knocking college, it's just that do it for the right reasons. Don't go get that college degree just because mom and dad thinks it's a great idea for you to have that college degree, because let's face it, today's job force isn't so conducive to just having that college degree anymore. I mean, there's so many positions out there, and you can create your own position for that matter by going out and educating yourself, making yourself valuable to the marketplace, and then either creating a job yourself or creating a business and then creating other jobs. There's so many ways you can do it. You know, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. I would say, if anything, if you know what you want to do, then, and it's not, you know, doctor, lawyer, or whatever, where you have to have that, then there's a way you can learn outside of paying $100,000 and being in debt when you graduate. I bet there is a way.
And this is one of the other things I love about doing my show and talking with all of the people that I get a chance to talk to, is all the various vocations and the ways people make money out there. I mean, I talked to Matt Miller, who was an Air Force pilot and then went corporate and basically had some issues with the corporate life and all that, you know, story. But then he bought one gumball machine from a guy. He took it and he finally found a place to place this gumball machine. And then fast forward several months later, I think it was about 12 months later, he had 20-something gumball machines around town. And he was making more than he was from his corporate job. And then he ended up starting a business called Spirit Vending, where he has these vending machine stickers. And this is a franchise, by the way. And I'll look up the episode. And I'll have it in the show notes of this show. But now he's a franchise, and he's helping other people start a vending business with these Spirit Vending with they're stickers that he puts in the school. Now, here's the other beautiful thing about that is it's a for-purpose business, which means not only does it generate income for him, but it generates funding for the school. So it's a fundraiser for the school, and I only bring that up because he created this out of thin air. I mean, right. From one gumball machine to now having a franchise. And I just heard his story. I interviewed him, and he's on the show, Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. And I mean, he's just an amazing guy, and he was having a hard time in corporate, so he started out with one gumball machine, and now he's got a franchise.
That's amazing. See, it's that type of out of the box thinking that he probably would have never thought that if he was sitting, in a classroom. I feel like a large part of college is just being able to regurgitate whatever you read, and some people can't do that. Some people get nervous when they take tests. That doesn't mean they don't understand or don't know the material. My sister is like that. Like, my sister literally cannot take a test and pass, but she can tell you everything on the test if she's not in that test taking atmosphere. Like, it's crazy to me. I used to think she was, just fooling around, didn't want to no, she really cannot take tests. And it's unfortunate that some people don't figure that type of stuff out until they paid $35,000 and failed, and now they're on academic probation, and their parents think they're just up there fooling around.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's a whole other subject and a whole other podcast in reference to certain kids in school, because it's just not conducive. Not everybody excels in the classroom. And Matt basically learned franchising by going to the library and getting every book he could on franchising or on vending first. First he was learning everything he could about vending, and then now he's written a book on vending. It's pretty amazing. Wow. Like I said, I'll have that in the show notes only because I brought it up. But I say that because there's so many other vocations out there that people have created or modeled and then made it a little bit different, and so on and so forth. So with College Dropout podcast, where do you plan on taking that? I mean, you mentioned a little bit about some other revenue sources. What do you plan on doing with that?
Well, right now, so many people have approached me about how to podcast. I'm actually in the process of writing a very short, simple ebook. I read a couple of ebooks while creating my podcast that they were good, but for someone who doesn't know anything about podcasting, it was a bit overwhelming. The videos helped me out more. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm writing the ebook for that. Next, after that, I want to open up a private mastermind group. I do not have all of the details, but that is going to be my next stream of income. I'm hoping to have it done and ready and launched by next summer. I'm still doing some research on, the proper way to run it. And, I don't want it to be a huge group, but I do want it to be a group that everybody can hold each other accountable, where people can have goals and, set goals and get something done. It's not just going to be a group where we're just going to be talking and having fun. No, I want these people to join the group and then actually do something.
What do you mean as far as having them do something? You building like a course for that?
Not a course. I think what I want it to be ultimately is a handful of people who want to become entrepreneurs, but they don't know where to start. They have the idea, but they don't know how to put it together. So basically what they need is someone to help them be accountable for what they need to get done, as well as someone who may have the resources depending on what they want to do. I have a decent network, so for most things that people want to do these days, I have someone who could probably help them. But I haven't, thought it out all the way, but I know that's one of the streams that I want to get into right away. I had a couple people approach me regarding sponsorships. I'm being really picky with that part because I don't want to make it seem like, this is just a show full of sponsorships. So I'm watching who I affiliate with and things like that.
That's really important to protect your brand. I haven't gotten to the point to where I have people approaching me for sponsorship just yet. I am looking forward to that, but I have some in mind, but I have already gotten in mind the criteria and the values of the particular business, that might want to sponsor Men of Abundance, because obviously I want to, stay true to myself. Bottom line, my litmus test really kind of, I guess you'd call it, is if it's not somebody that I would have dinner with my family with, I probably don't want to, have them represent the podcast,
that's
right?
That's actually a good a good rule of thumb, actually. I wrote down a couple things. I wanted to be something that either can help someone in life or in their business, but I'm still being real picky. Like right now, I have the Audible.com affiliation, which I fully support because I use Audible.com. So 30-day free trial, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have one of the motivational speakers who I listen to very often, Dr. Eric Thomas. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. I have an affiliate agreement with his team as well. So if anyone buys any of his products, but I fully support and recommend all of their material. So that's another one that's aligned up with my values.
Yeah, absolutely. And Audible is definitely a good one to be affiliated with. I listen to tons of Audible books. When I'm not listening to a podcast, I'm listening to an audiobook from Audible.
Yeah.
So, Cierra, we are going to pay it forward to Men of Abundance. You ready for that?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Men of Abundance, one thing I want to point out that you may have noticed amongst all of the guests that I've had on the show so far is all of them have some sort of daily habits that they follow, myself included. In fact, for the last 5 years, one of my daily habits that I have not missed is drinking a dense nutrition shake every single morning after my workout. I had never been a fan of any protein shakes or nutrition shakes or nutrition drinks or anything of that nature. I did get into smoothies at one time, but making smoothies, quite frankly, is very expensive and very messy in most cases. But about 5 years ago, my doctor told me that I had to do something about my cholesterol. Ironically enough, as it happens, divine intervention, call it what you want, I was introduced to this dense nutrition shake that completely turned my cholesterol around. On top of that, I had more energy, my esophageal reflux went away, my chronic joint pain wasn't nearly as bad, and I shed some weight, all within the first 28 days. I can talk all day long about what just 30 days of this dense nutrition shake will do for you. But until you try this stuff out yourself, you're going to continue to be as skeptical as I was. The cool thing is you can try Shakeology with absolutely no risk whatsoever. There's a bottom of the bag 100% 30-day money back guarantee. That means you can consume the entire 30-day bag, and if you don't see or feel the difference in your body, or you otherwise just are not completely satisfied, you can send the empty bag back and get all of your money back, no questions asked. And there are multiple different flavors you can try. Now, my favorite flavor is the green berry and the strawberry. My wife loves the vanilla, and we both like the cafe latte. There's also chocolate, and there's also a vegan chocolate and a vegan tropical strawberry. And there are even sample packs so you can try the various flavors. So to learn more about the benefits of Shakeology, go to menofabundance.com/resources, or just go to menofabundance.com, click on the resources tab, scroll down to the health and nutrition part, and you're going to see the Shakeology tab. Click on that, take a look, and if you have any questions whatsoever, get a hold of me. I'll be happy to help. All right, let's get back to the show. So give Men of Abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
1 to 3 actionable steps to take today. I would say number 1, figure out your core values, write them down. I did that this year for the first time, and it was really eye-opening because whatever you value, it should dictate your behavior. So I think understanding and knowing what you value, why you value it, I think that's key in either business or your personal life. That's number 1. Number 2, if you want to be an entrepreneur, write down what you want to do as detailed as you possibly can. I had to do that with my podcast. When I first had the idea, it was, kind of like up in the air, but when I had to write it out, I had to write out who was I talking to, what was I talking about. That helped me, create a better vision for what I wanted to do. Number 3, I would say find 1 or 2 motivational speakers or authors and study them for a year. I did that this year for the first time. I only read and studied books by John Maxwell and Eric Thomas. Went to Eric Thomas conference, the Average Skill Phenomenal Will tour that he's on currently. But those are the only 2 authors that I read. Last year, I read like 15 books all over the place, and I found that when you're getting information from too many sources, and if those sources aren't common, you could kind of get, confused a bit. So I would say find 1 or 2 authors or whoever in the field that you want to be in and study them for an entire year. that's made a big difference for me this year.
That right there is so powerful, because you're exactly correct. I've done the same thing. I've read hundreds of books and applied absolutely nothing. Because
Right.
it was like, oh, that's a great idea, but then you read another author and they have the same, a different idea about the same subject or the same area, and you're like, oh no, that's a good idea. Let me try that. And next, you're just on a treadmill. You're just spinning the wheels and going nowhere and doing nothing. So find a book that you can resonate with. Find an author you can resonate with, and study that, and then apply it as you go. I say apply as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Yeah, I was just gonna say one of the things I like about John Maxwell books is that at the end of every chapter, he has like an application, and they tell you, no, don't move on until you apply this. Whether it's writing down something, figuring out something, that's what I like a lot about his books.
What daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
Daily habits, I would say I listen or read something positive every single day. That's been a huge difference for me this year. This is the first year I've done it every day. That's the main daily habit. I always take some time to myself, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes. I often like to go to the park that's not too far from my house and just sit and just listen to myself. Just look over the grass, just sit in quietness, in peace, be still. Those are two of the daily habits that have made the biggest impact in my life.
Wonderful. Now, we mentioned a couple books already, but what book would you recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I have I would say the book that I would recommend is Greatness is Upon You by Eric Thomas. The reason why I would recommend that book is because it deals with your character, and if your character isn't right, no matter what you're trying to do, you probably won't get too far with it. The book is designed to be read over the course of 6 months, like one chapter a week. It's a very deep book. I'm halfway through it, but it's made a big difference. You really have to do some soul searching when you're reading this book. And if you're not ready for the opportunities that you think you may have coming, if your character isn't right, then you're either going to waste the opportunities or you're going to get the opportunities and you may end up having a bad reputation.
Wonderful. And I'll have that book listed with links in the show notes at menofabundance.com. Just search Cierra in the search bar, and this episode will pop right up. The show notes are complete with timestamps, which I absolutely love. I like when people have the timestamps. I don't know how many. I know John.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, it's great because it's like time traveling. You can click on the timestamp and go directly to the point of interest of the show that you want to get to, without trying to scroll back and forth and all this stuff. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one last question for you, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask, and that is, what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
Oh, wow. I would say living a life of abundance to me means living a life basically with no regrets. Whatever ideas, passions you have, you go for it, try it. One of the things I do not want to do is end up being 65 saying, I wish I would have. No, there's really no such thing as failure if you try something. So to me, living a life of abundance means trying and going after every dream, every goal, everything that I want to go for, is at least trying to go for it. And I probably will get to most of it if I put forth the correct effort.
Yeah, absolutely. No regrets. Beautiful. I love that answer. I really do. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing everything that you shared with us with Men of Abundance. It's greatly appreciated, and I know we've gotten a lot out of it. I certainly have gotten a lot out of it. So we're going to close this up, but before we do, if you could, leave us with a parting piece of guidance and any way that we can get in touch with you.
A parting piece of guidance. I'll read this quote I have sitting right here in front of me. Actually, it says, "Doing the best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment." So basically, cherish where you are, master where you are, so that when it's time to go to the next level, you'll be ready. And you guys can reach me, Cierra Seay, CIERRASEAY @gmail.com. That's also my Instagram, Facebook. I'm not on Twitter as much as I probably should be, but Instagram and Facebook, that's also how you can find me.
I appreciate that. And Men of Abundance, she gave her email address. And anytime somebody gives an email address, they're sincere and they want to really help other people. Not that those that don't want to do that, and some of them just get too many darn emails, but I truly appreciate you sharing your email address with us, and I will have all of that linked in the show notes as well.
No problem. Thank you once again, Wally, for having me on. Like I said, I really enjoyed the show. What you're doing is awesome. You've had some incredible guests so far, and I can't wait to hear what you and Greg Cardone talk about.
Me neither, to be honest with you, because who knows with that one, right?
I know, right? But he's that guy. You can't do anything but respect him. You may not agree with the way he does everything, but certainly a force to be reckoned with today.
Completely agree. Between him and Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh yeah.
Don't agree with everything they say, but you got to respect that passion, man.
Right.
All right. I really appreciate you, and you have an amazing day.
You too, Wally. Thank you.
All right, Men of Abundance, that's all I have for you today. I hope you got a lot out of that conversation. The bottom line is this: education is extremely important. It's just not everybody needs to pay all the money and spend all the time to get a traditional education. There are so many other ways out there to get the information that you need to figure out how to earn the income that you want and live the lifestyle that you want. Now go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.